Hello and welcome to Horror Boys. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris.
And we are the Horror Boys. And this isn't just any old podcast on this old internet. No, my friends. This is a horror movie review podcast where every week we review a horror movie. I know, crazy. It hasn't changed ever, and it never will in 2 weeks. We definitely are not going to have to change that intro for 8 episodes.
No.
Nope, not going to do it.
Not gonna happen?
No, why would it? That's a weird thing to even bring up as an idea.
It is.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what we're talking about today, which is another movie in this Child's Play Chucky franchise. As we talk about the next one. The Cult of Chucky. Which, as you know, Chris pointed out to me in our audio check, it's actually kind of a misleading title. There's not really a cult of Chucky, really, at all. But, let's talk about this movie.
Let's do it.
This movie is once again written and directed by Don Mancini. It is produced, once again as always, by David Kirshner. It's also composed, again, returning from Curse of Chucky, we got Joseph LoDuca. Our director of photography is also returning, Michael Marshall. Our production designer is also returning, Craig Sandals. Craig Sandals, I said it right the first time this time, unlike last time.
Right.
Our special effects were done by the group Alterian. Sorry, I don't know why I missaid that so weird. I believe they're also returning. Our special effects makeup, specifically, was done by the returning Doug Morrow. Our animatronics supervisor and lead puppeteer is the returning Tony Gardner. You can catch a theme here. We kind of got that Chucky family now, that Chucky team is just kind of rocking right now. Speaking of returning people, we got a returning puppeteers, returning from Curse, and I believe also they both might have started on Seed. We have Peter A. Chavaco and Lilo Tuavo? Once again, it's like a Polynesian name. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I am not cultured enough to know how to pronounce their name.
A shame.
I am. Then we have a different person who's returning, but not from the last movie. We have returning from back on Bride of Chucky, returning for puppeteering, is Fred Stinson. And then we have 2 new puppeteers, who are Veronica Tulloch and, lastly, Pamela Ivetta, who both didn't do a lot of other stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, and that's it. Sometimes
our shortest pre-notes
for the whole Child's Play Chucky franchise.
The whole franchise. Wow.
Yeah.
A breath of fresh air.
Yeah. For the first time, I'm not going to say, and I regret bringing up the puppeteers, but not really. I don't need to say it this time, even though I just said it.
Well, alright, that's a wrap.
Alright, yeah. Actually, I don't think I even said it last time, because I was also surprised by how short it was, because it was the first time it was like only 5 people working on it, or whatever it was.
Yeah, five new puppeteers.
Yeah. We open the movie at a fancy restaurant, where Andy Barkley is on a date with Rachel. Andy is still played by Alex Vincent, which I guess still played is... He's played again by him, because I guess still played would imply he was always played by him, but there was, Child's Play 3 where he was not. But, yeah.
True.
Alex Vincent did return in the last movie's post-credit scene, so if you... Of the unrated cut, which means if you saw it in theaters, you didn't know he was back. He's back.
He is.
For those people who saw this in theaters in 2013. It was also not seen in theaters, now I think about it. It was a direct DVD release, so I don't know why you ever would have watched only the rated R cut. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I realize that now. I guess maybe rated R... I think maybe there was a point where, that was also time frame-wise where, Redbox started to pop up, and I think they released it was a period where you had to have a rated R cut to be able to get into, Redbox. They didn't let you have unrated movies, at least for a period. If I remember, I think I remember reading that when we were talking about the Hatchet series. That's why some of those later movies had, rated R cuts that we chose not to watch. But yeah, that is me speculating based somewhat off of knowledge from previous coverage. But yeah, I guess in that version there was no Andy Barclay return, but he is back. Rachel is played by Alison Dawn Darien of Dead of Winter. Was a movie she was in that was a horror movie, so I'll bring it up. Have I heard of it? No, but that's all right.
There you go.
Rachel is not a fan of guns, while Andy is understanding. He is, for better gun control laws, but he still has a couple guns to protect him, is what he tells her. Spoiler, we find out that's not true.
Yeah, he's got more than a couple.
Yeah. Rachel asks what he's protecting himself from, and at that point, Andy realizes that she must have Googled him, which is actually technically a plot hole, or not plot hole, but like it's just like an error really in their world. There is no Google, it's internet search when they showed the browser last time, so I don't know what this Google is now. It's sprouted up since 2013.
True.
Or I guess maybe just, internet search. It's, it was, the internet search was the Bing of their world, where there was like a month where other people were using that instead.
Yeah.
But
it could happen.
Yeah, it's possible. I lost my place. And then he tells her that his babysitter was murdered when he was 6. We get a flashback of Aunt Maggie falling from the first movie. And he also says that 39 other people, to his knowledge, were also killed. Rachel asks if they ever caught him, and Andy replies that justice was done. And we get a quick flashback to Andy shotgunning Chucky from the end of Curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess if you did only see the rated R cuts, you now would have been caught up to his existence in the world again.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel tells him he's a nice guy, but this is just too much for her. And she leaves. Poor Andy.
Yeah. To which Andy is understanding, but
still disappointed.
Sad.
He doesn't want to be. It's not his fault that he was tortured as a child. Andy then heads home to his secluded log cabin. He grabs a beer and he walks over to his cabinet with a tad more than a couple guns. Just a few more. It's just, like a borderline arsenal. But hey, just a couple guns.
Yeah. Also, how long has it been between this movie and the previous one?
I mean, from when they made them, 4 years. I don't know timeline-wise where exactly we're supposed to be, because there is one point later in this movie that kind of messes up the timeline they had set up, because I had always assumed the last movie took place also at the same time from like when it came out, but due to something we see later in this movie, it has to have maybe been slightly before. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know exactly how long it's been. And they might say, and I might just didn't write it down and forgot, like, they might have said, like, I feel like there might have been a line from Dr. Foley to Nika later about, like, her being, like, having 4 years. Like, I could be wrong. Why, may I ask? Is there a reason you want to know how long?
Oh, yeah, it just seems weird that Andy goes from, like, living in this tiny baby apartment to a giant log cabin.
Fair enough.
Filled with guns.
Yeah, I believe it's been at least, like, a few years. So it's definitely, I guess once he realized Chucky was back, like maybe he somehow stayed away from the knowledge of him being back until he showed up at his house. I don't know.
And maybe he got a really good job after, finally putting Chucky to, well, not to rest, but, trapping him indefinitely.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, fair enough. Then he walks over to his framed Kent Military Academy sweatshirt, and he removes it to reveal a safe. He opens it and takes out Chucky's, shotgunned head that's nailed to a piece of wood. It also has some, like, chains also holding it down, but yeah. He's kept Chucky's still living head. Because Andy, he's definitely okay. No underlying mental issues he may be dealing with due to what he's been through. No PTSD whatsoever. Not. No PTSD that has been confirmed by Don Mancini. Definitely not. He's fine. He's fine. Okay. Yeah. He's fine. Andy lights a joint, and Chucky asks for a hit, which Andy obliges. Because, they're friends till the end, they're cool. Chucky is still played by the amazing Brad Dourif. After taking his hit, Chucky tries to bite Andy's hand in a jump scare that got me both times I watched it to prep for this movie. Which I really did. I forgot about it the first time. I guess I just maybe wasn't paying attention. But, both times, this little, him, biting jump scare, because there's also, a music cue with it and all that. It got me both times. Which you wouldn't expect to be possible, but it did. So, I guess credit to this jump scare.
Crazy jump scares.
Yeah. I really do just wish they would go away. But that's a conversation for a whole podcast in its own I could do. But I won't. I won't bore the audience. Andy says, "You want to play? Let's play," and goes to his to get a tool to torture Chucky. Chucky mocks Andy for not getting with Rachel. Chucky says, "Face it, Andy. I'm all you got." Andy grabs a blowtorch and heads back saying, "Sometimes it's nice just hanging out on a Friday night with your best friend." And then he burns Chucky's head. They do. His idea of hanging out with your best friend's a little different than when me and Chris hang out. We typically don't bring out the blowtorch till at least Saturdays, not Friday nights. Come on.
Yeah. Gotta pace your week out.
Yeah, it's way too early in the weekend to pull out the blowtorch.
Yeah.
We cut to our strikingly white title card. That's it. That's the title card. That's the end of the title card discussion. It's strikingly white,
very
which
white,
is kind of
and there's
you'll realize later that's actually kind of setting you up for the theme of this movie of strikingly white, as the visual style of this movie goes for.
Yeah, certainly is.
We then have our credits. What does that say? Over mostly, that's the word I wrote there. Over mostly desaturated clips from the last movie, and some articles and police files about Nika, kind of catching you up on the story from the last movie. Who we do see some shots of. So Nika is played by the returning Fiona Dourif. She's in some pictures in this credit, so I brought her up there.
There you go.
I could have waited half a scene because we come out of our credits with Nika being given electroshock therapy. She gets her foot pricked to show that she's a pincushion. I don't know.
On the waist down, or
orderly doctor guys here. They're just kind of jerks. But we don't really deal with them after this literal only scene, so we'll move on from them. We cut to Nika telling her psychiatrist, Dr. Foley, she's still haunted by the memories of the last film, ending it saying she still hears the screams of his victims. Foley corrects her by saying her victims because the murders were real. Dr. Foley is played by Michael Therault of Hemlock Grove and Heroes Reborn, alongside Horror Bois alum Hayden Panettiere. Nika agrees that Chucky was never real and was just a mask that she wore to live with herself. Which we know isn't true, but that's what she tells herself. Yeah. He tells her he's proud of her for the work she's done, accepting the hard truths. He lets her know he's transferring her to a minimal security mental hospital called Harrogate.
It's not a minimal security. It's a medium security.
Was it medium? I thought I said minimal, but whatever.
That's medium.
she's in the maximum security one right now, so it's still good for her.
Yeah, because now she can have visitors. Yay!
Oh, actually.
Uh-oh.
She doesn't really have anyone to visit her.
Yeah.
Nika doesn't think she deserves the more freedom that would give her. But, she's transferred to it anyway. We get some shots of her being transferred to this secluded hospital, which is currently covered in snow. There's snow outside.
There is.
Yeah. She is helped into her very white room by Nurse Carlos, who she thanks for being so nice. No, she thanks him for being so nice to her. He replies that he's not a fan. They're not going to be friends. He's just doing his job. Carlos is played by Zach Santiago. Sorry, not San Diego. Not at all. It's just
it's a city.
Yeah, Zach Santiago, which is also a city, but a completely different city.
That's true.
Yeah, he is of the movies Severed, The Eye, and Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency was a show he was on, alongside Fiona Dourif and Horror Boy alum Elijah Wood of The Faculty. That's what people know Elijah Wood of, for sure. This is The Faculty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah, nothing else.
Yeah, certainly nothing with like hobbits and other stuff.
No, they were aliens in The Faculty, Chris, not hobbits.
Right, no, I understand.
Yeah, okay. Let's make sure we're on the same page. On his way out, he asks her how she got in her wheelchair. She tells him, and he tells her that his husband has MS and leaves her some sticks of gum. Nika leaves her room, and we see the strikingly, in my opinion, beautiful, while somewhat unrealistic, all-white hallways of Harrogate. The visuals of this movie, I could see, from my understanding, are very polarizing, like this movie is in general. It's a movie people either like or they don't like. And I'm, spoiler, on the camp of liking it. And I really do think that it's shot in a way that's very pretty and, sure, unrealistic. I don't think you're going to ever have a mental hospital that looks this pristine. But for the sake of visuals, I think it looks really cool. Fair? She meets... Nika heads into the common room, where she meets Angela, played by Marina Stevenson Kell of Channel Zero, and Violent Night, alongside Adam Herdig, who was in our last movie as Officer Stanton. Angela thinks that she's a ghost that no one can see. But Nika can see her, so she's very happy that Nika can see her. She's interrupted kind of explaining her little story here by one of the other patients who says we can all see her. And he introduces himself to Nika as Michael. And until maybe given other reason, I will refer to him as Michael. And Michael is played by Adam Herdig, because this is our first of multiple in this movie, and just kind of something Don Mancini likes to do. He likes to keep people around. First of people being recast as new roles, which, you could argue technically was established in the world, I guess, with, Tiffany Valentine looking identical to Jennifer Tilly. So I guess it's okay. I guess in this world there are there are doppelgangers of people in this world.
Yeah.
So, sure. Yeah. And it's, he likes to keep people around, and can you really hate a guy for wanting to, hire people he likes? I mean, you might, and that's fair. You can hate whoever you want, but I think it would be silly.
Yeah, it's a pretty silly reason.
Yeah.
Unless they're like terrible actors objectively, then maybe you can dislike
but them. I feel like they were both their roles of the two characters that we'll have in this movie were like practically nothing in the last movie, and in this movie I think both did their job fine. I think Adam Hertig did a really good job in his role.
Yeah, it's fair.
But yeah. He's impressed that Carlos liked her enough to give her gum. and introduces her to Nurse Ashley, who, speak of the devil of recasting people, is played by the returning Ali Tatarin, who was in the post-credit scene of the last movie. She was a USX driver who gave Andy his package. Yeah.
Nice.
And she gives blanking on his name. I've been saying the actor's name
Michael.
so much. Michael. Yes, Michael. She gives Michael. His name is definitely Michael. She gives Michael.
Not multiple anything else.
No. He's just Mike. What are you talking mutable? I don't know what you're even insinuating. She gives him a cigarette. He asks Nika where she transferred from, and when she replies Lockmore, he realizes who she is. He asks her if she still has a thing for redheads, but then, apologizes because he realizes that was a little out of line.
Yeah, kind of an inappropriate question.
Yeah. They trade gum for a cigarette, and as he takes the gum, he does say that it's juicy fruit, which is a reference to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a movie that was the first ever movie Brad Dourif was in, which is why they're, having that reference here. Because it's also a movie about a
insane asylum.
So yeah, it's doubly, and also, but yeah, it was Brad Dourif. That was his. To be fair, on IMDb, he is credited for one thing before that, but it was an uncredited role that came out the same year. So yeah, this was the first movie Brad Dourif was ever in was One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest. So yeah. Then we cut to them playing harmonica in the stairwell. Woo!
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't care.
It certainly does.
It's definitely not shot in a way that's even supposed to be titillating. It's showing that it's happening, and that's about it. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's there. It's establishing that it happened, and then they move on. So will we. We head to group therapy, led by Dr. Foley. Angela is there. Michael is there. And Nico is there. As well as we meet Claire and Madeline. Claire is played by Grace Lynn King of Stir of Echoes 2 and Cube 2.
Oh.
Yeah. She's in
sequels. I like the original Cube.
I've heard good things about the Stir of Echoes as well, but she was not in either of those original movies. To be fair, actually, I don't think I've heard bad things about the Cube franchise for what they are. I think people like all of the Cubes for just being, Cube movies. But I could be wrong, because I've never seen them. Any of them. But yeah. Madeline is played by Elizabeth Rosen of ABCs of Death and House of the Dead. Which House of the Dead is directed by worst director ever, Uwe Boll. So I'm sure that movie was not any good.
What else has he directed?
Alone in the Dark is another one of his movies that's supposed to be one of the worst movies ever that he also directed. He mostly directs video game movies. And they're mostly, most video game movies are terrible. So yeah. But hey, she was in one of them, and I'm sure, honestly, with the performance she gave here, I'd be surprised if her performance wasn't at least okay, unless the directing was that bad that she wasn't given anything to work with.
It's not impossible.
Yeah, it is possible that even a good actor can have a bad performance if the director's bad enough. Which, I take back what I said. Her performance was probably also terrible because it was Uwe Boll.
Yeah.
Claire wants to know why Nika murdered her family. Michael asks, why did Claire burn her house down? And she's like, why do you always have to bring that up? And then asks, brings up how she didn't kill anyone. Michael says neither did Nika. Chucky did it. Nika gives a little half smile to Michael for that, and then says she doesn't blame her for being afraid after what she's done. She was very ill. Madeline asks if she's feeling better. She doesn't get a chance to answer, though, because Dr. Foley says He understands her concerns, but Nika isn't a danger anymore, and says, let's not forget, Nika isn't the only one benefiting from an insanity plea. Claire says she's the only multiple murderer, though, and Madeline corrects her that Nika's actually a mass murderer, which is a callback to Bride of Chucky, where they also discuss the difference between mass and multiple murderer. Claire doesn't care. She just wants to know why Nika killed them, which, you know what? Honestly, fair. I mean, if you have to, like, hang out with a killer, you might want to at least know why they killed him, so, you know, you don't piss them off.
Valid.
Nika explains that she was jealous of her sister and too possessive of her niece Alice, who she'll never see again, and she hopes is doing okay. Angela pipes in, saying that she's not. Chucky called her and told her that, and that he's coming for you now that you can have visitors. Poor Nika. Shouldn't have. Nika's now really wishing she wasn't in this. She's like, can I go back to the other place? But actually, she's not, because she's just laughing this off. She, maybe Nika is a little crazy.
Yeah.
Because she laughs until Claire asks if she thinks it's funny. She then says no, and Claire goes to console Angela. Dr. Foley pulls out a good guy doll he wants to use to, help the group, because that's, a wise decision. Totally.
Yeah, clearly.
The doll says, "Hi, I'm Chucky. Want to play?" Michael wonders if it's, the Chucky.
The Chucky doll?
Yeah. Dr. Foley says, "No, it's just a good guy doll from the 80s with one of the 50 possible names it could have had. Come on." And Michael asks if he's saying it's a coincidence. Foley says, "No, not at all. He paid for a Chucky. And he also bought him from Hot Topic." Which is kind of, which is like, I think is kind of written in there's like a joke like, haha, Hot Topic is a place that loves, Chucky and horror and stuff now. But really, it doesn't make any sense that, even that Hot Topic has, vintage toys. Because that's not a thing Hot Topic's really ever had, is vintage toys from the 80s. But, it's funny because, haha, Hot Topic is where the goths shop, and goth kids like Chucky.
Yeah, because they like horror.
Yeah. He asks Nika if it makes her uncomfortable. She says no, not at all. And then Madeline comes over and calls Chucky her baby and takes him from the Dr. Foley. So apparently Chucky's her baby now. We transition to a lunch in a spinning shot over a bowl of like meat stew, I guess. It's kind of really red. But it does look like meat when other people are eating it, so I guess it's supposed to be meat stew, which definitely feels like it's, an homage to the last movie shot.
Yeah.
Which is a little weird if you think about, a director giving an homage to his own, or, cinematographer, whoever did it, giving an homage to the same shot they came up with. But, hey,
A little bit self-aggrandizing.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what? But it is a pretty shot, so, I can't blame him. Madeline is impressed.
For that one.
What'd you say?
So I'm going to have to deduct some points for that one.
Okay. I expect your score out of 100 at the end of this.
All right.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Madeline is impressed. Her baby is already talking when he says, "I like to be hugged." Claire tells her to stop it. Her baby is dead. Michael tells her to just let her be happy. Claire doesn't think letting her play house with a psycho killer's trophy is going to make her happy, and takes Chucky from Madeline. Nika tells Claire to give him back, and Claire asks if Nika is going to stab her or cut off her head or something like that. And Nika says, "Don't be ridiculous. We don't even have access to real cutlery. The only thing she could get her hands on are the drugs they give her every morning that she's been stockpiling for months, waiting for the right bad lady to come along and poison." Once again,
even though that's probably not true.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But definitely does add to, maybe make people think Nika's crazy, and maybe even me wonder if maybe everything she's been through maybe has turned Nika a little crazy. Because she jumped straight to being like, and here's how I'm going to kill you. It's like, okay, so Nika, settle down. Maybe you're just trying to jump into the role. I don't know, but...
Yeah.
Claire angrily gives Chucky to Nika, who returns him to Madeline. Michael tells Nika he's Mark, and it's nice to meet her. And he heard about her from Michael, who's in the pool getting ready for the Tokyo in 2022. Or 2020, sorry. Well, actually, it was 2021. I mean, we know that now. But,
Yeah.
Nika tells him Michael Phelps is retired when she realizes that he's talking about Michael Phelps. And he apologizes and hates when this happens. And Madeline tells us his real name is Malcolm, and everyone calls him Multiple Malcolm.
Yep.
Malcolm, says nobody calls him that. Which we just saw someone did, so he's wrong. Somebody calls him that. At least Madeline calls him that. Maybe not everybody, but definitely Madeline.
Definitely someone.
Yeah, so not nobody. And now, throughout the rest of my notes, I will refer to him as Malcolm, even if he is going by a different name.
Fair.
Sorry, Mark. You will not be called Mark in the scenes where you think you are Mark. But yeah. Dr. Foley takes Nika to meet a visitor. It's Alice's legal guardian, Miss Valentine. And Tiffany Valentine is played by Jennifer Tilly, as she always is.
Yep.
Nika is confused because Tiffany, she looks so familiar. Like, she looks exactly like Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah.
And Tiffany, well, I guess Miss Valentine is what she's referred to, but I refer to her in my notes as Tiffany, says she gets that a lot. Tiffany says she expected Nika to be taller and to seem more dangerous. Nika says that Tiffany doesn't seem very motherly. So, I guess they both had misconceptions, They both expected other things. I don't know what I'm saying.
Each other?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nika asks how Alice is, and Tiffany replies saying she's dead. What she suspects was a broken heart. This breaks Nika with some just great acting from Fiona. Fiona Dorff is so good. And I will try not to just praise everything Fiona Dorff does in this movie, but... Because this is the only time I've written in my notes, but there are many times where I will maybe want to, and I'll try to hold it back. But, just man, Fiona Dorff is great. Tiffany pulls out a Chucky doll Alice wanted Nika to have. Tiffany says it was given to Alice in therapy. It's not the, doll from before, which, to be fair, I don't know why anyone would have even thought that, because I don't know why she would have ever been given that doll back. We saw that as, evidence in the last movie.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then she leaves, Tiffany. Nika, telling Nika good luck. Nika gives Dr. Foley the Chucky, saying, I can't, and leaves. We get this slow-mo shot where Foley and his Chucky pass Madeline and her Chucky in the hall. Foley sits Chucky down in his office and leaves. After he's gone, Chucky blinks and looks away, confirming he's alive, because, it's the 7th movie. We don't need to keep the charade on for that long. A nice solid 15 minutes, I think, or so is where we're at this point in the movie, and I think that's a completely fair amount of time to keep us wondering if Chucky's alive in this one.
Yeah, but it's also like, how is it possible that Chucky is alive if we know that the other Chucky, if Chucky himself is, still bound up in
It's true.
Andy's cabin.
That's true. There is that element of confusion at this point in the story. You don't understand how that's happening yet.
Like, how's that possible?
Yeah, wait, what?
It shouldn't be possible.
But no, Chucky's head. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. because I've seen this movie 2 times, so I didn't even think about that as a thing. You're right. That is we are supposed to still be confused at this point.
We are. And I was.
And that's fair. Later that night, we see Carlos at the front desk with headphones in, and Chucky sneaks up behind him and steals a scalpel from a drawer behind him. And Carlos, not Carlos, no, Carlos still listened to his music or podcast. We don't know. It's not confirmed.
Yeah.
Chucky starts back down the hall and runs into Angela. He asks where Nika is. She tells him and says, "You can see me?" He replies he can. She tells him not to be afraid, and she won't hurt him. He thinks she's messing with him. She says she's happy to have the company, even if he's not real. And Chucky says, "Let me explain something to you. I'm a vintage mass-marketed children's toy from the 80s, standing right in front of you, holding a very sharp scalpel." She says, "No, you're not." He assures her he is. She replies that she's a schizophrenic, and she sees things. Chucky asks if she's the same crazy person he had talked to on the phone last night. She laughs and says, "Sometimes I hear things too." Chucky gets fed up and says, "She's next," and he'll be right back. And as he walks away, he mentions being in a cuckoo's nest, which, once again, is a reference to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was Brad Dourif's first role.
And I would like to say, I think this is my favorite scene in the whole movie. It's just really,
I do really like this scene. I do personally, there is a scene later that I personally enjoy more, but yeah, I do really, this is a great scene. But yeah. I'm not going to at all try to take away from the scene. I do think the scene's great. He then heads to Nika's room in a POV shot. We've already been in a POV shot a couple other times. I didn't mention it, but yeah, POV shots are always fun. Once he gets inside, we're no longer in a POV shot, and he notices what? I don't want. Okay, Austin, and with your dyslexia / being just illiterate when in the middle of it. All right. He notices that one of her wheelchair spokes is broken. He walks over to the other side of the bed and finds a pool of blood and sees that she has cut her wrist with the wheelchair spoke. Then we cut to the morning. We don't know what happens here. Where Carlos comes in to wake up Nika, who is dead, and it's the classic horror trope of killing off the return. No, wait, actually, no, wait, I'm sorry. No, she wakes up, very confused, and sees "not so fast" written in the blood pool. She also sees that her arm is sewn up, and is just able to hide the blood from Carlos, and then sends him away so she can change, is what she tells him, so she can, hide what happened. But yeah. The code blue alarm goes off, and we head to find Angela has been found dead with her wrist cut, holding the wheelchair spoke, and Chucky did it, written in the blood. Does not look good for Nika. We head to Andy, watching a video from 2013, which is the moment that kind of, man, I wish that date wasn't there, because that really just kind of throws a whole... the only way this is, because I think the last movie was supposed to be set in 2013, I thought. So, I guess this is right after he shoots him. He immediately took him to Dr. Foley.
Yeah.
He's all, he's still all chained up and already, messed up. It looks like he's been tortured a little bit. It looks like it should have been somewhere more in the middle of these timeline, but for some reason they chose to write November, to be fair. I think it was November or something. So, it is later in 2013. So, the other movie still could have took place in 2013, but it's just it felt like a weird choice when this movie was supposed to be set in 2017 to have that scene also have to have been that far back. But
it does feel a little bit strange.
Yeah. And yeah, in this scene though, as I kind of said, he is trying to prove to Dr. Foley that Chucky's head was alive. But Foley dismisses it as some sort of like impressive animatronic or something. Or maybe he totally sees what it is and just doesn't want to believe it because, he wants to profit off of Nika, as we might find out later. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
What did I say? But, yeah, he dismisses this very... I don't understand how you would think that this isn't something crazy. I mean, like, I guess simple thinking it's a living doll is actually more crazy than thinking he made an animatronic head. So, actually, I take it back. I forget that we, as the fans, are going, like, what are you talking about? Why is no one to just believe everything? But also, they haven't been in everything, so they should still believe these people are just crazy people, because that's the logical explanation.
Yeah.
Chucky's head laughs at him and tells him to shut up, and Chucky asks, what if you really are crazy? He then continues to berate him for a little bit, but that's the gist of the question is, what if you are crazy? We head back to group therapy, where Claire isn't buying that Angela killed herself and made it look like Chucky did it. She thinks that, Nika did it. And also, especially that it wasn't Angela doing it because, she was really close to Angela. But, here's the thing. It was Angela didn't do it, but just because you think you know someone doesn't mean you know exactly how their mental health is. So, she could have been wrong still. Malcolm thinks they're looking over the simplest explanation, which is that Chucky actually did all of this. Madeline comes in with her Chucky and thinks the Chucky on the couch is an ugly doll. Nika explains to Malcolm that there are 2 Chuckies because Alice gave her one. And then she makes the connection that Miss Valentine could be Tiffany Valentine, the girlfriend of Charles Lee Ray. She then has to explain that Charles Lee Ray was a serial killer in the 80s who died next to a good guy doll and had the nickname of Chucky. Foley tells her it's just a doll.
Yeah.
She wants him to prove it, though. So he puts a lighter to Chucky's hand, and when there's no reaction, she wants him to do it to Madeline's Chucky because he could have switched places. Madeline leaves with Chucky, and she's offended. She's like, because, she thinks this is her baby, and this crazy girl just told her to, let him be burned. Which, in her crazy mind, that seems really, really bad. Which, fair. If this really was her kid, which it's not, because she is just a crazy woman. Also, I will say one thing about this movie that, I'm sure that the depictions of mental illness here is not perfect. It's not. But I will say one thing I do like about this is there's not really... The crazy people aren't violent, really. Which is kind of a trope that we've brought up a lot of how it's a problem that, mentally ill people are more likely to be the victims of violence. And in this movie, actually that rings true, because Chucky's here and killing people. But that's not... I don't think that's the point they're making. I'm just saying I think props to Don Mancini that it's not... just a bunch of violent, crazy people, because that's a trope that Hollywood really should move away from, and they still haven't after this movie came out. But this movie didn't do it.
Yeah, so good on that.
Yeah. The Halloween, kills of the world prove that no, Hollywood still wants to do that. But this movie did not, so cool. Dr. Foley is disappointed with Nika and leaves with Claire following Madeline. Nika says she was wrong. Malcolm encourages her that she could be right about Madeline's and they should go get rid of it. Now, in the hall, Malcolm asks why Chucky didn't kill her when he had a chance. Excuse me. She explains that he's toying with her and he'll kill all of them first, making her watch before getting around to her. Unless she's just a complete psychopath. Which, she can't rule out yet. They don't catch Madeline before she goes out for a walk. Nurse Ashley tells Nika to leave Madeline alone. Nika wants Malcolm to follow her, but he says he can't because he lost his privileges by hacking into Foley's computer, which was easy, a lot easier than being the CEO of a $200 billion company. Nika realizes that Malcolm thinks he's Mark Zuckerberg now. Which one thing about the way he portrays Mark Zuckerberg is I can't corroborate where I saw. I don't remember where I heard this, but that he specifically is trying. The actor's goal was to try to be Mark Zuckerberg's portrayal in the movie about Facebook, The Social Network.
The Social Network.
Yeah, he's trying to do Jesse Eisenberg as Mark Zuckerberg is what he's doing in this role to kind of try to show that the idea that Don Mancini had, what he wanted him to do, that was to show that Malcolm isn't really doing a good job of what he's doing. He is kind of faking it to try to get acceptance a little bit, which I thought was a cool little detail if it's true that's why he's. I don't know. I like that little fun fact if it's true. She distracts Ashley with a question about her chair so Malcolm can sneak out. We cut to Claire taking burnt hand Chucky out of Foley's office and trying to throw him in the trash chute, but Chucky bites her. She tries to tell Foley and Carlos about Chucky, but they don't believe her, and she starts to scream and yell about it, so they take her by force away. We cut back to Nika, who watches Madeline throw Chucky into Angela's open grave after Chucky flips her off, which does now confirm to us that there are 2 alive Chuckies at this place. Or Nika's crazy, and there's only 1 alive Chucky that bit, Claire. But that bite does, prove that Chucky's alive. If there was any doubt, which there shouldn't be, because it's a Child's Play Chucky movie, you should just know. Madeline then pushes Malcolm into the grave once he shows up. And we cut back to Claire, being forcibly restrained and sedated by Dr. Foley. After he sets Chucky down, Foley tells Carlos that it's disturbing, yet interesting, to see this mass hysteria, before just making small talk about Carlos's husband. Because, him and Carlos are actually just buddies, apparently. That's cool. That's a good, good doctor with, nurse relationship. I'm proud to see that. From Dr. Foley, a perfectly upstanding man from what we've seen so far.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's fair. As far as we know at this current point in the movie.
Yeah. Carlos and Foley have to rush out when Ashley comes in saying she needs help with Malcolm. We cut back to Nika, who is watching Malcolm return Chucky to Madeline before giving Nika an evil smile after Carlos and Ashley help him out. Oh, what's going on there? We cut back to Claire, who's noticed Chucky has gotten up. Chucky seems to just funny, but also just I'm not sure if Chucky is completely just playing with her because he knows he's about to kill her, or if he genuinely is confused at what the word compressed means. But the way that Brad Dourif delivers this line, part of me wondered if the character actually is supposed to not understand what compressed means.
It's a chance.
Yeah. Before he drops that said compressed air can or canister, which hits the valve on the floor, sending the tube. I'm just choosing every different word to describe this container of air. Gets sent into this window above her, raining down glass, decapitating her in a derivative but very fun kill, in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. It is, yes, derivative of the kill from Bride of Chucky. There's no way around saying that.
Yeah.
But I think that, I'm not going to say they even did it better, but I think they did it well, and I enjoyed it.
I think it is more cool because we do get a cool prop head out of it.
Yeah. But it is also, we are now in 2017, which means it's not done terribly, but there is also definitely CGI effects in it, so I kind of go, ooh, is it better?
Oh, yeah. There is a lot of CGI involved. Yeah.
But it's 2017 CGI where it almost looks okay, so I'm not pissed about it. I'm just not happy,
Yeah, that's fair.
It's now snowing in the room because it was snowing outside, and there's this now giant hole in the ceiling. And Chucky says that, sometimes he even scares himself. Nika then shows up discovering the body in this just beautifully shot, snowy, slow-mo scene. It's like the snow is just falling down. I think a lot of the cinematography in this movie is art, and maybe that's not what you want from a Chucky movie. That's fair, and maybe some of it even feels out of place after the shots or scenes and story around it. But this shot is beautiful.
Fair.
Andy finds out about the new murders thanks to Perez Hilton's website,
which is hilarious.
Yeah, which is also just a very topical reference in 2017. Which actually I believe I will cite the source I got this from and say that take it with a grain of salt because it was IMDb trivia, so it could be someone making something up. But they said that they heard, IMDb trivia says that the reason Perez Hilton's website was shown in here was because someone had leaked pictures of Fiona Dorff on the set to his blog, and when they reached out to him, this was the make good, was that they could then use it for the joke in this scene. So... maybe it happened. Also, I believe it was in a deleted scene. Because the first time I watched it without reading about how there was a deleted scene about it, I was like, "What? How did these pictures and stories get out at all?" Apparently, in a deleted scene, Carlos is taking pictures of Nika because he's trying to get some money, probably for his husband with MS. So. He's, secretly, taking pictures of her because, she is kind of a hot button story, so maybe people won't, I don't know. But once again, I didn't actually make the final cut, so I don't know how these pictures got here. Because there's literally a picture of the blood, that says Chucky did it. So.
Yeah. And he's not too happy about
yeah, so he grabs a good guy doll with a shaved head and leaves in his truck. We head to a one-on-one session where Nick tells Foley Chucky did the murders and is manipulating Madeline. He tells her Madeline is just projecting onto the doll like she is. Nika says she's going to prove it and that she thinks that the dolls are both alive somehow. We now get that confirmation because we cut to presumably the last night where Chucky does the new Ade Boku Dambala incantation to bring Madeline's Chucky alive. Chucky says, not Chucky, not at all, sorry. She says, Nika says she knows how crazy that sounds, and he says, no crazier than one being alive. Which, is actually a completely fair response.
Yeah.
And says that someone took the other Chucky doll, and, they might even find it in her room. When she asks, this is when she asks where it is. Nika says she's not a killer, and she's not crazy. Dr. Foley wants to hypnotize her, like he's done in the past. Yeah. Content warning. If you have found this podcast and don't know what happens in the movie, it gets a little, sexual harassment, sexual assaulty.
Assaulty.
Yeah. So, hey, if that's something that's going to trigger you, hey, turn off the podcast.
Yeah.
Because it comes up a couple other times, so I'm going to talk about what happened in the movie. But yeah. So. Lost my place, though.
Hypnotizing.
Yeah, he wants to hypnotize her to help her accept the truth. He also, then we have this flashing lights. So also, if you haven't seen this movie and you are also, sensitive to flashing lights, also stay away from this movie. Yeah, this movie is, I guess, problematic, but not in a way that I think it meant to be. I don't think there was any ill intent, but there are some reasons why it's problematic depending on who you are. If you can watch this movie,
It's true.
Yeah. He makes himself a drink, and with hypnosis, gets her to admit that she killed them and was caught on hidden cameras. We see her, imagine her killing them, but as her say that, she had wiped them away as well. It's her to admit, it's, it's hypnotism as well as drugged hypnotism. So, she's saying everything and seemingly believing what he's, telling her as well now. Then she chuckles because Chucky's right behind Foley. Foley ignores that and goes in for a kiss while she's drugged. And he says he's missed their sessions, implying that this is not the first time he has crossed horrible lines. Chucky then knocks him out with a bottle. Chucky says, "Holy obscenity," and they call me sick. This guy is diabolical. I mean, what a piece of work. I'm actually a little envious. He tries to hand her a piece of the bottle to kill Dr. Foley. But we fade to black before seeing what she does. We cut to Nika crawling in the hall, where she comes across Alice, played by the returning Summer Howell. Alice says, "We've been waiting for you," and we see this growing shadow of Chucky approaching. Alice warps backwards away, and a giant Chucky stands over her, Nika that is, and it kind of like more flickering lights if you have a problem with that. This scene's also not good for you.
Yeah. And what is also some of the worst effects / editing in the franchise.
I'm okay with it because it's meant to be a dream and it feels weird.
Eh.
I mean, that's fair.
I feel like you can do both. Yeah. You can make it dreamy and ethereal, but also make it look not cheap.
Fair. I don't feel like looks cheap personally, but if you have a wrong opinion, I'll let you have it.
I don't know if I do, but
Nika screams herself awake into the room that Claire had died in as the snow falls on her, and we get flashes of Chucky's half-cut face from Child's Play 3 before Nika actually wakes up in her bed. We cut to Malcolm, Nika, and Madeline waiting for Dr. Foley, who's running late. Malcolm asks Nika if the late Dr. Foley has a nice ring to it. He says, "It makes you wonder who's next." Nika says, "What's wrong with you, Mark?" He replies, "That's not his name. His name is Charles." And he thinks they've met. Nika asks if she can hold Madeline's baby. But Madeline leaves to go put him down. Which we find out actually might have a double meaning. Nika, which I would just really kind of credit to Don Mancini's script for that line there, because I don't think that even at this point her character realizes that's what she's doing, but there's that double meaning, spoiler, in a scene from now, so I like that. I like that choice of words there, because put him down has two connotations. Nika goes to follow her, but is stopped in the hall by still alive Dr. Foley. She didn't kill him. Who says she assaulted him last night, but says he's willing to keep quiet about the incident if she is, because he's a good doctor. No, he's a horrible. He's
this piece of scum.
It's hard in a movie to make you side with Chucky over the other antagonist, because Chucky is deplorable, but I don't know, I might put him worse, but not really. I mean, it's what he did is still Chucky is still a multiple murderer.
Yeah.
Killed some rough number of 40 to 43, 44 somewhere at this point of bodies that he is, plus the 22 he did as the Lakeshore Strangler.
Kidnapped a woman and held her hostage, and then stabbed her.
Yeah, well, we try to pretend like that scene didn't happen in that movie because it sucked.
It did kind of suck.
We see down the hall that Madeline is breastfeeding Chucky. We cut away to Andy on the road, and he's getting a call from Ghostface. Wait, it's Tiffany. No, wait, it's Jennifer? Even she loses track these days. Andy says he knows who she is, and he's coming to kill her and Chucky. She says there's actually 3 of them, which I don't know who that's actually referencing, because at this point there's 5 of them at least, so I don't know who she's talking about. who's the three.
I think she meant 3 of Chucky.
I don't know if she knows that yet, because that would mean there would have to be a fourth Chucky that she's talking to. I think, spoiler once again, I think she's talking about her Tiffany doll and Chucky. Because there's no other way of her knowing about the other 2 Chuckies yet. But even then, there should be 4 Chuckies because of Chucky Head, which she knows exists. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and wait for it. She also says the cult is growing. So you know what? Chris is wrong. This movie is about a cult of Chucky.
Roll the credits, even though there is no relation to them being a cult aside from being a group of more than 2.
A group of more than 2 that practices voodoo? I mean, there's kind of a voodoo cult element. It's still a stretch, but you could maybe say that her and Chucky, with the way all the voodoo magic they do, could be a voodoo cult by just being them.
Just the 2 of them?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. But then also, technically, there are more than 2 of them because they've split themselves, and they are also equally their own person. Like, they have their own collective... Yeah. We'll just move on. We don't need to overanalyze the term Cult of Chucky. It's the title. Just deal with it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the group of Chucky didn't have quite as good of a ring as
the
Cult of Chucky.
And she gives him the message disembowel from Chucky, which feels later like it's foreshadowing, but it's also foreshadowing that would make no sense for Chucky to know. So I think it's just a weird coincidence that Chucky says the word disembowel to Andy. Back to Harrogate, where Nika rolls up to just outside Madeline's door. We transition inside in this cool overhead drone shot that transitions between the room going over the set. Madeline finishes feeding Chucky as we see that he bit her because there's blood on her shirt now. She says she never stopped loving him. Talks about quotes Psycho by talking about how they're love of your mother. I don't know the exact line. I didn't write it down. Before the important part, she proceeds to attempt to suffocate the doll, who after a bit stops struggling. So I guess Chucky's dead. Or at least that Chucky's dead. We know of 2 other Chuckies for sure,
Right.
Dr. Foley comes in and reprimands her for what she's done to the baby. She replies, "It's not a baby, it's just a doll." So you know what? That's a breakthrough right there. But it's not rewarded as such. Because he asks her about her baby, Joshua, and tells her to say what she did. She says she's so sorry, but he makes her say it to Chucky. She starts to ask him for forgiveness, and then starts to cry about how her son just wouldn't stop crying, and she just needed the noise to stop, and how she was a terrible mother. So we've now let us know that she's here because she killed her kid. Dark. The movie's got some very funny moments, and maybe one of the darkest moments in the franchise.
Yeah.
Nika says, "You didn't kill him, and he's just pretending," and she lunges for Chucky. Madeline grabs him and says she wishes he was alive, but she knows wishing won't bring him back. Dr. Foley takes Chucky and tells Nika it's just a doll. That's a powerful symbol of Madeline's guilt, Malcolm's confusion, because by the way, Malcolm's been in the doorway for this whole scene. He's not actually relevant to the scene really, but he's there. Yeah. But I didn't want to cut out that part of the line and then have someone be like, "Well, why did you quote a line but cut out part of it?" So Malcolm is technically here in this scene.
He is.
Yeah.
Standing there.
Yeah, and also it's a symbol of Nika's past, and it's time to bury the past. We head to Malcolm, Dr. Foley, and Madeline, joined by a chaplain who does a funeral for Chucky. The chaplain is played by Tom Aniko of Silent Night, alongside Ali Tartarin. Madeline keeps one of Chucky's shoes. And while this is happening, Nika is watching on, and Carlos comes in and asks, "You think this is for real?" So I guess Carlos is starting to believe her. I don't know, but she says no. He always comes back. which is, actually a line Chucky had said before. Also, when he was in a grave. So I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but it's kind of a weird coincidence if it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
Because, like, she says, I believe, literally, she says the line, he'll be back, he always comes back, which is the direct line from Bride of Chucky when he is in the grave right before whatever the stupid Katherine Heigl's character's name was called.
Yep.
Later in the night, a USX truck drives away right before Andy Barclay drives up in his truck. The guard tries to send him away because it's after visiting hours. The guard is played by Darren Wall, who's actually typically a visual effects artist on movies such as Resident Evil 2, Final Destination 5, Wrong Turn 4, Silent Night, and Curse of Chucky, which he also played a highway cop in that I just didn't credit at the time because I didn't feel like it mattered. But hey, he's back, so yeah, he was also in that movie.
Nice.
Yeah, I also believe he also did visual effects on this movie as well as doing this part. Andy asks to be committed, and the guard is still not cooperating, so Andy punches him and is put in a padded cell inside. We crossfade to Nika watching the grave, and just as Madeline's Chucky emerges, Burnt Hand Chucky sedates her, and then we cut away to Carlos bringing in a familiar-sized box to Dr. Foley's office. And it's Andy's buzzcut Chucky. They both leave his office, and we head to Madeline's room, where she's sobbing, holding Chucky's shoe. It gets taken away from her by Ashley, who informs Madeline she's on watch for worry of killing herself. Typically, that's just a 2-word watch that you call that, but I don't believe I'm allowed to say that word on YouTube. Madeline says if she could see her son again, she would, and asks Ashley if you go to heaven if you kill yourself. Jeez. Once again, one of the darkest of the Child's Play Chucky movies.
Yeah.
Ashley says, I don't know, and leaves, saying she'll be back every 15 minutes. When the door is closed, Madeline's Chucky is revealed behind it. She asks him to hug her one last time. She asks, will it hurt? And Chucky replies he'll do his best. He then shoves his arm in her mouth and rips out something.
Tongue? Question mark?
Tongue, vocal cords, random meat in the back of her neck. I don't know. He rips out flesh. Before then leaving his arm in her like bloody corpse's mouth. Nurse Ashley comes in and finds her dead body. Cut to a little bit later as the body is being removed. Malcolm taunts Dr. Foley over this. Foley tells Ashley to put him to bed, but she says she can't take this, and she leaves.
Which,
yeah,
understandable.
Yeah. If only she actually got out. What? Didn't say that.
Huh?
Foley gives armless Chucky to Carlos. Not armless. One arm is really what it is. Yeah, one arm Chucky.
Yeah.
To Carlos to get rid of him, which he does, and he throws him in the trash chute. So, by one arm Chucky, you definitely aren't alive and could come back in. Foley re-enters his office to find Nika in a straitjacket. She says it was Chucky. He laughs and asks why he always falls for the crazy ones. Jeez, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool if like his head got smashed in or something. He grabs a shoebox and tells her Madeline's dead by killing herself, unless Nika did it. But he doesn't care because either way it's going to make a good book. He says she'll have to go back to Lockmore though, which he creepily finds a shame because he can't give her more personal attention as he can here. He starts to put to put on these red heels onto her feet after, he kisses them. Because he's also a weird foot guy, that's weird. And that's really his biggest crime.
Yeah.
No, it's not at all. She says, "You're going to die, and I'm going to tell everyone about you." He says she's a schizophrenic murderess, and therefore no one will believe her. She spits in his face, and Burnt Hand Chucky knocks him out again, saying, I just can't with this guy. I don't know whether to kill him or just take notes." He tries to give her a broken bottle, but she says she's not a killer. Chucky says, "Not yet." What? In comes one-armed Chucky with a drill and tells Burnt Hand Chucky that Andy's here. Burnt Hand Chucky says it took the kid long enough. One-armed Chucky says that Andy's not a kid anymore. Burnt Hand Chucky says, "What's your point?" One-armed Chucky says it behooves them to watch their step. Burnt Hand Chucky says, "Behooves? Listen to you. You sound like Hannibal Lecter." Can't believe they canceled that show. Which is reference, or I guess not, it's the line is there because Don Mancini had written 2 episodes and produced 8 episodes of the last season of Hannibal and was working on it, so he has a specific connection to being really mad that the show got canceled. So he wrote that line in for Chucky. One-armed Chucky does the new Ade Boku Dumbala incantation and brings Buzzcut Chucky into the cult. See, it's a cult, Chris.
Sure.
The 3 Chuckies reminisce on how much they love killing, and specifically how much fun it is to watch fate. They love seeing the people's faces when they're killing them, and they start talking about the specific ways that Chucky has killed people throughout the movies. And I will also bring up here that this is something that is an idea that was, can you guess what? Recycled.
Movie.
Yeah, because it's something, Don Mancini wanted to do, but was told back in Child's Play 3 that it would cost too much. So, on this movie that probably had a lesser budget, he did it. It's also just advanced technology, so technology is cheaper because of it, but you get, yeah. But yeah, he wanted multiple Chuckies back in that movie when, the blood mixed into the plastic, because it really didn't make sense for only one Chucky to come back, but, he had to then. But, if Don Mancini has an idea, he'll bring it back. It might take him 26 years, but he'll get to it.
Yeah.
Burnt Hand Chucky explains that he discovered a new spell on voodooforDummies.com that changed everything. And pissed off a lot of the fans. I'm not one of them. Maybe because I discovered it later and wasn't someone who watched it for years. But some people hate this new spell and this new the way he can do it. And yeah, I'm okay with it. But some people hate it. That's one of the many reasons why this movie is very polarizing. A lot of the audience likes it. A lot of the audience hates it. There's not much in between. I'm sure there's always someone with an opinion, but typically it's a like or hate, not a much in between. But yeah. And he tells Nika that it was fun being Alice until she got hurt and therefore wasn't believable. What's the word? It wasn't trusted anymore by her victims. So because her victims have fought back. So that's why he had to get rid of Alice. Carlos comes in, and the Chuckies swarm him, stabbing him repeatedly, drilling him, and cutting open his stomach, eviscerating him. It's cool kill. A bunch of cool stuff. Gore effects are cool, and I like when they're there. They all talk about how much fun they just had. Buzzcut Chucky says he's never felt so alive. One-armed Chucky replies, "Yeah, well, you've been alive for 2 minutes," which is a great joke. I love that joke. Not spoiler at all, but just call back to earlier in the podcast. This section of the movie is my personal favorite section of the movie. I completely agree with you that scene earlier was great, but this section is why it's not my favorite, that scene. Already read that. They all laugh. Burnt Hand Chucky says he's going to kill Andy. One Arm Chucky says he'll kill Andy. He's earned it. He's been through so much tonight. And Buzzcut Chucky says, hello, look at my hair. And the others just both apologize immediately and say send him on his way because, he definitely deserves to kill him after what he did to him. One Arm Chucky guards the door, and then we cut to outside. The security guard goes to investigate a familiar red convertible. He looks inside and sees the Tiffany doll But while he's looking at the Tiffany doll, from behind him, his throat is slit by Tiffany / Jennifer Tilly. It's hard to know who exactly. Like she said, even she gets confused. I don't know what I'm supposed to call her.
Jennifer Tilly just played Tiffany.
Yeah, but also Tiffany is in the body of Jennifer Tilly in this world. She slits his throat with her nail file, which I've never brought up that it was a nail file this whole time, but this is the third time she has slit a throat with a nail file. Yeah, just thought I'd, bring up the fact that, it's a nail file. I forgot to bring that up the other times. I just said slit his throat. Inside, Burnt Hand Chucky reveals that he has no plans to kill Nika and does the Ade Boku Dumbala incantation. And Nika is now able to rise to her feet because, voodoo.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I'm fine with that, And they, half hinted, maybe there's electricity involved, I guess, because, her legs did move when she was getting electroshocked.
Yeah, they tease it in the beginning.
Yeah. Nika Chucky says, "Hiya, Doc," as Foley starts to come to. She says, "This is for Nika," and stomps his head in one of, the most graphic and just cool because of that kills. Oh, man, it's cool. His head goes all smushy. And also, it's so earned for a character in a horror movie. You want to see this piece of crap die. So it's just, it has that extra, oh, yeah, you know? Yeah, you know. Maybe I have problems. She leaves in a black trench coat and red scarf. She finds Malcolm, who shows her Ashley, who's been drilled in the stomach, killing her. He takes credit for it, but Nika Chucky says, "No, you didn't." He says he did it because he's Charles. She replies, "In your dreams, I'm Charles, but everybody calls me Chucky." He says, "Nobody calls me that," revealing to the audience that he was never possessed by Chucky. Because if he was, he would know that that's his name. She says he's a poser who's sick, but not in the fun way like her, and that Nika's taking a nap. And then with Chucky doesn't want Nika to ever wake up. Malcolm falls to his knees, saying he wants to be someone who matters, but he's not Mark or Michael. He's just multiple Malcolm. Malcolm says he can still hear Chucky inside his head, and as he says that line, immediately out of his eye comes a drill because One Arm Chucky shows up and drills him into the head and out of the eye. It's another great kill. Back-to-back great kills here. Nika does the Chucky laugh perfectly by Fiona Dorff, by the way. That laugh, she nails her father's laugh perfectly. One Arm Chucky joins in. We cut away to Buzzcut Chucky going into Andy's cell. He throws a knife into his leg, but Andy rips into Buzzcut Chucky's guts and pulls out a gun that he had stashed and shoots Chucky 4 times in the torso, saying, "This is the end, obscenity-er." That's what he says. Exactly those words.
Something to that effect, yeah.
And a last one in his head. Doesn't quite kill him, though, so he stomps his head in.
Yeah.
In another fun,
more cool
gory
gore.
Kill. Yeah, cool. Yeah, another fun, gory kill. Chucky, I guess it is. Chucky / Nika shows up at the door and says, "You kill me, you kill her." and he just goes to shoot immediately, but the gun is out of bullets. So she locks him in, and she leaves. Nika joins Tiffany outside, and she calls him Sweet Face, and they share a kiss. Chucky Nika says, well, this is different. Tiffany doesn't seem to mind, though. When Chucky Nika walks over the guard's body, she says, some things never change, though. And Tiffany replies, a true classic never goes out of style. You said that to me once after stabbing a man 39 times. Which is a reference to Bride of Chucky, if you somehow found this podcast and listened to it but have no idea of the other movies.
Yeah.
Weird choice, but hey, thanks for sticking around. Tiffany says she feels bad about Alice, and Nika says, nah, obscenity, that kid. And they both start laughing, along with the Tiffany doll, as they drive away. Post-credit scene has a mysterious figure show up to Andy's cabin. It's Kyle, with some pliers, and says, Andy sent me, we're going to have some fun. Kyle is still played by the returning Christine Elise. Yeah. Now it's time for final thoughts. I mean, as you know, you can always tell with my final thoughts. Yeah, I enjoy this movie. It's fun. I like it. I really love the continued story. I personally really care about all these, like, legacy characters, I guess is a term we have for it now, but I don't think we even had that yet in 2017. But, yeah, I love it. I think one thing that I didn't really get into here because I knew I was going to do it in my final thoughts and knew I wanted to praise it in my final thoughts and didn't want to be too repetitive is I love Fiona Dourif as Charles Lee Ray. The way she encapsulates her father's, like, energy is obviously not going to be perfect because she's not him, but it's as close as you're going to get to someone who's trying to be Chucky. Like, and she's not Chucky, you know, but, like, she does it, and I love the way she portrays Chucky Nika. The laugh is perfect, just, like, the slight man, like, I don't know, there's something just about it. She does that role, props to Fiona Dourif in all of what she does in this movie, and in the last movie, and I assume other things she's done. Because, yeah, she's great here. The gore is stepped up. This is probably the goriest of the franchise, and it's, you know, gore is not necessary for a good horror movie, but if you have a movie that's fun without it, in my opinion, and then you add cool gore, you're going to elevate that movie to even cooler. Yeah, I like the soundtrack. I'm not one of the people who has a problem with the stylistic choices they went for with the all white and the very desaturated stuff, so the reds popped more and stuff. I like it. Yeah, that's I don't need to say more than that. I like it. Are you surprised? Austin likes a Chucky movie. I liked Seed of Chucky. You think I was looking like this?
Sure. I think I might be one of the few people who are kind of in between on this movie. There is a lot of the elements of this movie that I liked, and certain elements of this movie that I really did not like at all. As I had said in a spot or two before, the editing and some of the, you know, CGI effects really kind of took me out of certain parts of the movie. But a lot of the writing and acting and just the overall, like, carried over plot line to where it's all just continued, I enjoyed. And so there's, like, I would say the overall majority of the movie I enjoyed, but there were certain things that took me out of it, and I was like, I really wish they had done certain things differently. But it didn't. It wasn't a Seed of Chucky situation for me. So that was good. And as Austin said, yeah, Fiona kind of kills it as Chucky Nika. I really enjoyed her performance, and thought that, yeah, she really encapsulated Chucky's energy Pretty spot on for, not being Brad Dourif. Um, I thought that was a real treat to see. Um, yeah, overall, pretty solid experience. Could have been better for me. But definitely not by any stretch of the imagination the worst Chucky movie.
It's fair. This is the end so far, at least. Who knows, if there'll be more someday. But this is the end currently of this arc of movies. Not the end of the story, but we will be taking a week break from this story that Don Mancini has, done. Because next week we're gonna stick with the chronological release of this, so we were gonna take a break from this story and head on over to the Child's Play reboot that I haven't seen yet, but it's gonna be hard for me to not probably be like, why does this movie even exist? Even if it's passable and good, even I'll be like, but why? And so let's see if that's my thought at the end of the movie. Let's see if that's what my final thoughts are, because I would be surprised if they're not.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I'm not. I was about to say I'm Austin and you're Chris, but not yet. Real quick. Hey, 5-star reviews on all your podcast apps. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that bell, or all that crap.
Give us the updates, sir.
Yeah, over on youtube.com/@horrorboys. And if you want to support us directly, financially, that is, head on over, because all of this would support us, just in different ways. But I guess if you want to support us financially directly, you can head on over to patreon.com/horrorboys, where you get this podcast early, at least a day early, normally a few days early if I remember to edit it. But yeah, by edited I mean upload it, because I don't edit this. You know that. You've listened to this podcast if you're listening to this part. But yeah, I've been Austin, joined by Chris as always, and we'll be back next week. Bye-bye!
Bye-bye.